So In the Land of Leadale has come to a close. 12 episodes have honestly flown by, and it's an interesting ending where, like, on one hand, if I heard an announcement for Season 2 was going to come out, I'm going to be watching it, I'd cover it, because I love this show. I thought it was such a refreshing take on a pretty oversaturated kind of video game fantasy type world genre, and it really just rolled with it in a very carefree slice of life way with a hint of an emotional tinge to it. But at the same time, if this was the only 12 episode season we got, there'd never be an OVA, never be a second season, no movie, nothing else, I would be satisfied. This really did kind of feel like a happily ever after, and while, yeah, there's still more things to see, we didn't get Luca, her new daughter, to fully commit to saying mom or mother, but you get a sense of satisfaction leaving the last two episodes. Episode 11 basically is kind of like the farewell kind of build-up party where you're gathering the materials, you're almost reflecting on everyone you've come to know and love. And episode 12 is the finale. You build the house. You have a satisfying stopping point. She goes back to where she started because it's where she's most comfortable. And just getting that kind of like farewell flying scene, it's hard not to say like this really could be a satisfying stopping point. And if they do more, it's not like it's going to negate anything I feel. She's always going to get into shenanigans. There's always going to be some threats that she'll deal with. And honestly, the struggles of motherhood with such a young daughter could prove to be an eventful, kind of frightening mess for her all at the same time. But I like how these last two episodes really just work in harmony to be a send-off that almost feels conclusive in like the best possible way. One thing I really appreciated with the last episode here is her reflecting on her journey as a whole. Reflecting on she was bedridden, she died playing this game, she started up and apparently had 3 kids, going over why maybe she acted so vicious to some of these interactions. I remember earlier on into the episodes, like the way she would deal with some of the kids and stuff, people are like, oh, she's so mean and this and that. But when you consider the fact that she was just a sickly girl in a bed playing a video game for all these years, dies, now this world is actually a reality, and all these things that she really didn't have any connection to are now considered lovey-dovey. Like she now has to be a mother to people who she didn't actually love to begin with, but now is actually growing to love. It just makes a lot of sense and clarifies maybe some of her more spontaneous actions that people were brushing aside as just vicious for the sake of being an asshole. But no, it's like she has a lot going on, even if she does seem like she's in control 90% of the time. And I think that really adds a level of care that I think has been missing in this show. Something I mentioned a few videos back, give or take, was I really wish she maybe reflected a bit more about how other players got to this world and had that conversation. And while we didn't get specifically that question answered, or her at the very least confronting said question, I like the fact that she did reflect on her own actions, and even though she seemingly had so much under control, she's been pretty flustered inside her own mind to begin with, and it's a nice added touch. But yeah, I love seeing her build that house. I love seeing the favorite son basically continue to be the favorite son, getting all the lumber for mom as he gets a head pat and, the little kid gets a head pat. I was expecting Mai-Mai to be a bit more upset by the little sister taking mom's love, but I also forgot the fact that she would also melt that said little sister for being cute. And, of course, this is the troubled child. I knew that was going to come. But it was nice to see the kind of farewell and just the numerous characters she's met along the way and how they continue to help her, like the merchant, right? Who ends up saying, like, whatever her first purchase is, give it to her for free, as the wife gives her an entire carriage. As we see a very funny Trojan horse mixed with the carriage in order to drag it. I thought the centaur was going to be like the one summoned to do it, but I absolutely love what they're able to accomplish there. And then the fact that they had 3 different parties in the span of 5 minutes, it felt like. The welcome back Kana to you're building a house Kana, you finished your house Kana party, and the fact that a single drink still is knocking her ass out. I thought at this point she's built up a very insane alcohol tolerance. No, apparently just one. And it was nice actually getting to see the other maid, the other cat maid here, and how, goddamn, they are spicy together. The fact that the girl is always just trying to pick a fight with basically, the dude is just standing there doing his job. I honestly thought it might have been more of an equal playing field of okay, they're both trying to poke at each other. But honestly, it kind of felt like 75% of the time, the cat girl was the reason there was any sort of conflict, and how Luca, this little girl, is the one who is able to kind of break said conflict away. It just felt satisfying across the board. It just felt like this, if you needed to send off an anime in a 10 out of 10 way, this episode's a perfect example on how to do so. You start back up where the show essentially started up, but it doesn't feel like we're going back to nothing. It's like from where she was just renting a room, enjoying life for the first time, to ending this show with her really starting a family, something that she's choosing to do, not just kind of getting thrown into it. It's a great touch, especially given the fact that she's giving this child a good shot at a happy life. Not overly strict, not overly loose at the same time. Like, she does have rules, she'll have chores, schooling, things like that, but ultimately, they're going to be a family, and it feels like a very solid spot to just wrap everything up. Honestly, this was definitely one of the bigger surprises for me this season. I really enjoyed what it set out to do, what it accomplished, and it's just interesting how good I think the color palette actually was, because often when people discuss like anime when it comes to either the art design, like the character design, maybe background details, and then obviously the animation. But the thing I think that sold this show as much as it did for me was actually its color palette. It's always a very bright and vibrant show. I mean, from, of course, eldest son here basically having the rose petals fall all around him, the way they light up those scenes, to just the general look of the world. Even though it's not like the character designs are the most highly crisp, highly detailed things ever. You know, it's going to give KyoAni a run for its money. No. But the way they actually went about presenting this world and its characters, it's never boring to look at. It's always engaging for me. It's always fun to look at. And when it gets into the more goofy moments, like the more chibi aesthetic, it just is a seamless transition. Like, look at that scene where we see the mermaid, right? Even clarifying what happens there. Doesn't want to go back to the mermaid village. Was a burden there. No one really liked her. Now she's essentially a human washing machine, and she's actually loving it as Kayna built her official spot that she can make her living. And just the way they present those simple things with the video game menus popping up, or the mystical, magical stuff as she's singing, it's hard not to have a grin watching this show. And there's definitely certain shows that I go back to from time to time, even if I'm not necessarily going to do an entire rewatch, if I need something to chill out. Nothing that's going to make me overly stressed, just kind of ease the tension. And I think this one might be thrown in there, even though it seemed more like maybe I should watch it in an entire batch versus like a show like Nan Nan Biori, where you can pick up any episode and just have a mellow, peaceful time. There's something charming about this show that even though it does have conflict, the way they went about sprinkling it in, not making it overly in your face, but there enough to remind you that this is a world with killing and things like that. It's just absolutely fantastic. And seriously, one of the strongest endings I think I've seen over the past couple of years in terms of like an episode 12 or a last episode of a season of anime, just because it really does hit all the notes that this show set out to do, while simultaneously putting a bow that could leave it forever. But I digress. What did you think of either last week's episode, this latest one? Do you want a season 2? You happy with what we got here? Let me know down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.